Welcome to One Up Fantasy, helping you one up the fantasy football competition. For the latest in Chicago sports news, visit ChiCitySports.com. And now, here are the hosts of One Up Fantasy, Steven Johnson and Chris Jackle. Kaboom!
What is up, One Up crew? Welcome into an all-new episode of One Up Fantasy here on ChiCitySports.com and the Tape Never Lies Network. I'm Steven Johnson. He is Chris Jackle. It has been a hell of a week so far, and it's only Tuesday, and we got Thanksgiving ball. The Bears are imploding from the inside out. We don't know if Matt Nagy's fired, and there's plenty to talk about from the fantasy perspective. Jackal, how are you?
Shit, I'm great. You know, it's like Christmas is coming early, or holiday season is coming early, as they say. You're right. It's Tuesday, and we have a lot to talk about. But I mean, Chicago Bears fans, it looks like we're getting what we asked for. You know. It's a strange thing. We've all wanted it. But if they're gonna do it, do it. What the fuck are we waiting for? Just pull the goddamn Band-Aid off and let's get to work. Like, this is just silly.
You know, everyone's talking, oh, it's a short week. It's a short week. Who cares? You had Chris Tabor. He coached the game. He was fine. Just give him the reins. That's all you got to do. Plain and simple. Who cares if you only got 3 days to practice? Man, I tell you, that's a whole nother conversation. But you know, Nagy coming out denying the fact that he's not
What's he
fired.
supposed to say? I mean, you know?
I know, like, oh yeah, it's my last game. Like, is he really gonna say that? I think the telling sign will be if he's got the menu board and is ready to start calling plays on Thursday. That's the telltale sign right there. Is it whether or not he is being let go at the end of that game? I think with a loss, which I think is well within the realm of possibility.
Oh, fuck yeah.
That'll pretty much be it. I do worry if he can stop this 5-game losing streak. Are we at 6 now? I don't even know what we're at.
We're at 5. He would be
okay.
There's, I think, 9 coaches that have had multiple 6-game losing streaks. Every single one of them has lost that job after the second season, except for 2 of them. And then they lost, like, they were fired the next season. So regardless, fucking Nagy's out of here. You know, he looked like he looked like he was crying after the game on Sunday. The post-game press conference, his eyes were fucking redder than mine were. I mean, it was crazy. Like, he just looked like he had been miserable and crying. For mine, I wasn't crying. He was, but it's just like, because he knew it's over. It's a done deal. Yeah. Let's bring on whoever we can get through the season. I want to get ahead of the game, but I hate waiting until Thursday. It's going to fuck fantasy up. There's not many guys on the team that you're going to want to play. So it's like, what? Fucking Chicago. They can't even fire guys right. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Hey, when you go 101 years without firing a coach mid-season, speed bumps, I guess, is the best way to put it in terms of how they can come about doing this the correct way when all is said and done. But like we said, a conversation for another day. Maybe we'll come back to it if we have some time at the end of the show and talk about whatever
this is a fantasy show. You know,
I know
whatever
the hell the
Shane and Phil, they did a
pop.
Phil and Shane did a pop-up show earlier to talk about everything, and it was entertaining to say the least. There's a lot to talk about, and Phil was getting fired up, and Shane was, you know, keeping the level there and trying to maintain that yin and yang. But it was, I mean, this is wild, and it's big news. Charter franchise, it's getting ahead. It's first time ever. Firing a coach in midseason. Granted, their coach was like also the owner for like 50 years, so it's not like he's gonna fucking fire himself. So I think that's all skewed personally, but whatever.
Sure.
Here we are, week 12, fantasy football. I just want to say one thing, Ralphie, if you're listening, you talked all that fucking shit before the fucking week.
Didn't back it up.
How'd it go? So anyhow. Let's roll into what we got to chat about, man. Let's get going.
All right. Well, let's dive right into it. Like we said, we are in week number 12. If you're in a 6-team playoff, you're looking at 3 more weeks until the playoffs take hold. That's 12, 13, and 14. And then 15, 16, 17, because no one wants to play a week 18 playoff in fantasy football, especially with the way things are now with this extra game. However, I think it's fair time now that we could look at potential MVPs to the fantasy season, not necessarily the actual NFL league MVP, but the fantasy season. And there are plenty of names to go around, guys that have taken the baton and run with it from beginning to end this season and really popped up. I know you mentioned that you brought up the 10 names. We'll call it 10 names that have really led the way here. Let's start off. If you had to say, this is the guy, this is the one that is leading the charge and is the reason why the majority of the teams that drafted him are going to win their title, who is that guy?
Obviously, we'd be saying Derrick Henry. I think both of us would have him on the list as number one as a fantasy MVP. But he is not playing anymore because he got hurt a few weeks ago. So
yes.
I'm still sticking with a running back. And I think Jonathan Taylor is the guy that is really kind of, in my opinion, he's that guy. I just think, what he's done this season, not to mention, I mean, he's already rushed for almost 1,200 yards. He's almost rushing for 6 yards a carry, 13 touchdowns. He's fumbled 3 times. But when it comes to fantasy points, though, I mean, he's killing it. 50 points last week. He's averaging 33 points in his last 3 weeks, and 21 points a game. Like that's solid as hell. It's only going up from here. I think the Colts with Carson Wentz actually playing somewhat decent football is a compliment to Jonathan Taylor, obviously. But I see Taylor being that guy that is just anybody that has him on their league or on their team in their league is fighting for 1 or 2 seed. I mean, there's Rashad put in the chat. He had 200 points in the last week. I bet you he had Jonathan Taylor. Might have had Eckler too. In our league, there was the same thing. It's Jonathan Taylor or bust right now, and he is putting up monster weeks, week in and week out. There's some other guys too, and we talked about Cooper Kupp, and I'll let you kind of take the floor in a second here. But what do you think about Jonathan Taylor? Taking the running back crown from Henry, but also like the fantasy crown, just doing it this year.
The thing that is just so eye-opening really to both Henry and Taylor, and the fact that Jonathan Taylor is just now catching up with what Derrick Henry was able to do over the course of the season before he was injured in week number 8. I mean, just piling on the yards, and it's just a nonstop barrage for what Derrick Henry was able to bring to the table. But, like you said, Jonathan Taylor, whatever is in the water in Indianapolis, he is just destroying guys lately and destroying teams as a whole. I mean, again, you look at this game against Buffalo, he gets 5 touchdowns. He has not gone a week without a touchdown since week 3.
Yeah.
He has scored at least once every single week since week 4 and continues to just show out time and time again. I mean, you look at the breakdown as well. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4 multi-touchdown games.
Yeah.
So in that 8-game stretch. So again, he just continues to roll and get it moving. And I mean, just a little bit of a slow start. And there were teams that pounced on it as well. Yeah. And if you were one of those, kudos to you. For being able to kind of diverge that Seattle Rams Titans opening schedule there for Jonathan Taylor, and then just watch him settle in. That Indianapolis offensive line gets healthy, and away he goes. Just wind him up and watch him run. I mean, at this point, it's really hard to not pick Jonathan Taylor as the guy that's going to lead the way. However, and you alluded to him there a second ago, another guy that you cannot whatsoever deny that he has turned into what is arguably the best value pick in fantasy drafts in 2021, and that's Cooper Kupp in Los Angeles with the Rams. And for what he has been able to do, it's mind-blowing. In half-point PPR leagues, he is averaging 21.6 points per game. The next best wide receiver is Deebo Samuel at 18.5.
Wow.
So you have Cooper Kupp by far leading the position 3 points better than wide receiver number 2 in 2021. That is insane. The pairing that he has been able to make with Matthew Stafford, even with the Rams just laying an egg constantly lately. I mean, you look at some of these last games here, 11 catches for 122, 11 catches for 95, 7 for 115, 10 for 156, 9 for 130. I mean, that's just his last 5 games. And that's not even putting into account the fact that he started the season with 5 touchdowns in his first 3 games.
Yeah.
It is mind-blowing just how much he has been able to get off the ball. And really, without much else help in that Rams receiving room. Yeah, Van Jefferson's been solid. Robert Woods really never got off the ground, and now he's, for whatever reason, not on the IR yet, but torn his ACL. Did he not? I don't know what the Rams are waiting for.
It's probably a financial thing. Who knows? The Rams are, they got, who knows what they don't want to use a draft pick, or they're trying to do something. The Rams are always wheeling and dealing, but there's a method behind their madness out there.
Yeah, whatever it is, the madness they got to figure out, because they've looked like crap the last 2 games. But and then you bring in Odell Beckham, which we still don't know what the verdict is on that. All we know is it looked.
We talked a little bit about this though last week. Just the fact that is it knocking the rust off, kind of getting everybody together. Do they need this break? Are they going to come out and play well? But one thing is, right. What's right is right, and that's Cooper Kupp, man. That dude is just. He is taking care of business. Second overall in fantasy total points with almost 260, 258.6 in PPR leagues, trailing only Jonathan Taylor, who's got 264.4. So it's neck and neck. And you'd be surprised, I think, at who's number 3, a guy that was an afterthought and for most teams when it comes to fantasy relevancy, especially at the quarterback position. He was almost a guy that they were looking to move on from, and that's Jalen Hurts. He's 253 total fantasy points. Not that I say he's like, I'm looking at him as an MVP, but just, as I look at the list there, he is a guy that has really come on strong. Predicated off, they still run the ball, Sirianni over there. He likes that 3-back set with those 3 dudes. Now that they have Sanders back, does that equate to problems in the running back for fantasy, or is it Sanders now? And Hurts is just going to continue to do well. Devonta Smith and him have a great connection. I think that's something that you're going to see in Philly. Philly fans should be extremely excited with what they have cooking over there. And if Sanders can stay healthy, I just don't think they have the head coach for it over there. But what are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I tell you, he is one of the most polarizing figures in football in Jalen Hurts. I didn't think he was going to be much of anything this year. I thought the writing was on the wall, and really there were some trades being made before the season even started where you thought, okay, the Eagles are making some backup plans in case this doesn't work out for them with Jalen Hurts as their quarterback. They bring in Gardner Minshew via trade from the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he's ran the pine for the season here. And again, looking at Hurts, and again, he's getting better, but he's always had this built-in rushing ability, which is, again, rushing quarterbacks. The lingo for these types of players, especially quarterback, the Konami code type players, where it's like you have them able to unlock this extra gear, because looking at the passing numbers, it's nothing eye-opening. No. In his last 7 games, he's thrown over 200 yards once. And that was 5 weeks ago. To think about that,
easiest schedule coming up.
Oh, I know. So looking at his schedule, I mean, it sucks because week 14, they've got the bye. They got the late bye, which is going to throw a wrench into a lot of people's plans.
I think I play Ryan Cox that week, so that's good for me.
Works out for you. They've got the Giants, the Jets, almost said the word, Washington football team, the Giants again, and then Washington again. That's their last 5 games. If that doesn't scream opportunity for Jalen Hurts, especially after
Devonta
he was
Smith,
able to
Miles
do
Sanders, Dallas
man.
Goedert, everyone's going to eat over there. But I mean, no, for Hurts, he could get into the MVP talks with a strong finish to the season. I'm sorry. I mean, the numbers are there. If he could get Philly into the playoffs, I mean, actually, I don't even know the record off the top of my head. Talk to me,
5-6.
All right. So if they could squeak into the wild card, I mean, they play in a shitty conference. So,
They do. I'd have to see where exactly they are in terms of the standings. They got to be fighting for a wild card
I would think.
at a bare minimum here. Let's see where they're at. So they're 5-6. Of course, nothing is going to
I'm trying
pop
to
up
bring it
the
up
way
here.
that you actually needed to. Okay. Updated playoff picture for the
What do you got?
NFC. So Philadelphia is currently 9th. They sit behind San Francisco. New Orleans is the 7. So it's New Orleans, San Francisco, Philadelphia. Panthers on their heels at 5-6 as well. That's going to be close for those final 2 spots because you have the Vikings and the Saints both at 5-5. So that's essentially they are a half game out right now of a playoff spot with that schedule. Again, a fantastic potential slate, like across the board, fantasy wise, even their defense, fantasy wise, to really get things rolling. I mean, we also watched the Giants do whatever the hell they did last night on national television. That wasn't pretty, whatever that ended up being. And Washington has been reeling. They lose Chase Young for the year. That's going to throw a wrench into their plans, and they've never been really fully healthy on the offensive side of the ball as well, even though Taylor Heineke
This is the first time. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Taylor Heineke's been pretty impressive, all things considered. I don't think anything really scares you with the Saints and watching Trevor Siemian. I mean, the Eagles spanked them. So, I mean, they've got the tiebreaker there. The biggest thing is the Niners. We don't know about the Niners. They seem to be playing much better ball. Yeah. They got everybody healthy. We've talked about them in the last couple of weeks and what Debo can do, what Kittle can do, that running game, Jimmy G playing decent.
He's fantasy relevancy, Jimmy G, helped me get that win over Ralphie, but whatever. But, just to circle back to health and Philly, they're actually, I think, the healthiest they've been probably off of getting Sanders back, getting Miles back, getting Devonta Smith is healthy. Obviously, Hurts is back. Goddard's back. He's healthy. Signed that big extension, right. So I know he wants to go out and produce. But Hurts, he's on pace for throwing over, almost 3,400 yards, rushing for over 1,200. I mean, almost 1,200 yards, and that's a pretty strong season. I mean, granted, it's not 400, it's not 4,000 yards passing. Not that we know about that in Chicago, but it's still. It's still a strong season, and I know I talk MVP, but if he can take that season and turn that into a playoff berth and maybe a win, I mean, that's pretty astounding for a guy that was an afterthought in Philly, in my opinion.
No, absolutely, and I mean, you look at the rushing stats alone. I mean, he's on pace to finish with over 900 for the year. I mean, a quarterback with 900 rushing yards, and he's got 8 rushing touchdowns, albeit he did get 3 on Sunday, which pads those numbers. But you can't go wrong with that.
No,
you can't go wrong with that. I mean, I'll eat crow that I don't think anybody expected this to happen, but here he is. Here he is.
Yeah. Is there anybody, I know we talked about a couple of guys, but is there anybody you think outside? I mean, Matt Stafford was a guy that they talked about the MVP rankings. He's in the top 10, but is there anybody else that you can think of, in your mind that would take that fantasy crown as the MVP?
I struggle to find another name outside of those 3.
Yeah.
What
about Herbert,
Taylor, and Herbert? Man, I love Justin Herbert. I think he is set up for a fantastic future and just watching him play and, being able to see what he did against Pittsburgh and a very good Pittsburgh defense. It's just the consistency model that worries me about Justin Herbert, because there have been a couple weeks where you watch him and you're just like, what the hell was that?
I mean,
And
week 10, he had a
he's
stinker against Minnesota. He didn't play
right.
that well, but
And he did the same thing against New England a couple weeks before that. And so it's just that consistency model. But then again, he's got the opportunity down the stretch. Week
yeah,
14, 15, 16.
yep.
Giants, Kansas City,
Thank you.
Houston Texans. I mean, if that doesn't scream get back on track down the stretch, I don't know what's going to.
And that,
I think from a dynasty perspective, though, with what Justin Herbert can do, and I'm glad that he refound his legs on Sunday night as well,
90 yards.
because
That was impressive.
he is mobile. For as
Yeah.
big as he is a damn mobile guy.
He was on McAfee today talking. I didn't realize he weighs like 200 and I forget what he said. He's like 260 pounds or whatever. I was like, what?
6'6". He's a tank.
Dude, running into that guy. I mean, Jesus. I mean, never mind.
It's gonna bowl you over like Jerome Bettis back in the day.
Fuck. Anyone's got. I'm 5'11", 175 pounds. I'm gonna get fucking knocked over anywhere. So fuck. Sorry,
but yeah, I mean, I do like the way that he's set up, and really, you compare him to the other quarterbacks, the younger quarterbacks in the league, and I think you can still group quite a few guys into that bucket. I mean, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, that you compare all of them. I wouldn't necessarily say, I'm going to go for the Mahomes. I'm going to go for the Allen. I might strongly consider Justin Herbert to be that guy if he can just bring up the consistency level and put together just a strong finish to this campaign in his second year, because I mean, really, what's stopping him?
So let me ask you a question, Steven.
Yeah.
Herbert goes, Mahomes is gone. Jackson's gone. Do you take Jalen Hurts next in a dynasty draft? Out of those four?
So if Mahomes, Herbert, and Jackson are gone, correct? That's what we said. I'd still take Josh Allen as that four.
I just was curious, if he finishes the year and, because Allen does, the Bills, they take away the deep threat over there in Buffalo and they don't know what to do. It's different, but they don't run the ball as well. They may be have a short playoff picture, in my opinion.
They between the Colts game and the Jacksonville game, I don't know what's wrong with the Bills. I really don't. But at the same time, he offers that rushing upside as well. And the difference between him and Hurts is that the Bills are connected to Allen long term. And especially when you're talking about dynasty, you want that long-term viability, which is something that I don't think Hurts has. It would not shock me if they start trying to make moves in case they don't make the playoffs and they say, okay, the rushing upside is great with Hurts, but we need to move on to another quarterback that can give us that passing upside with younger players like Jalen Reagor, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, and the entire assembly that they've put together there in Philadelphia. And so that's my main concern, mostly about him. Do I think he'll end up starting somewhere else? Yeah, I think he will. It's just a matter of, do you necessarily trust whether that will happen quickly or, what happens when you end up, holding the bag and the train's left town and there's nothing you can do when they make a switch midseason and you've spent a high draft pick on Jalen Hurts after the Eagles implode. I guess is the best way to put it.
True. No, good point.
So with that, I mean, I'd say it's definitely outside of that, though. Allen for sure outside of those three. I mean, you can make a case for Kyler Murray, but I'm starting to get worried he's getting some injury issues because
He's a little
he ended
cat
up
out
like
there,
that at
man.
the end of well, he ended up like that at the end of last year too,
Yeah.
where he was dealing with some nagging stuff, and
He plays hard, man. He gets hit.
he
He's all
does.
over the field. So it's and it's what you worry about with like our quarterback in Chicago is, it's just they're a hit away from, and as he is now, he's out. But and you've seen that with Murray. That's a great point. And it's longevity is health is wealth in the NFL. If you can stay on the field, you're going to get paid. And if you put up numbers, I mean, it equates to great things all around for your pocket, fantasy owners, hopefully wins on the field. But, for the sake of this show, we're talking about fantasy points, and one dude we didn't even talk about, Tom Brady. I think he's number 4, in total fantasy points this year. And he's the one guy that it does not rush, it doesn't go over for, I think, 300 rushing yards a season, like every other quarterback that's in the top 6 for fantasy points. He's like the anomaly. But they have such great offense over there. He's just but he's not, I don't think, in the MVP for fantasy talk. So I'm just kind of rounding out the list here.
I would be surprised if he does enter that conversation. I mean, it looked like there for a minute he might. I know I had extremely high hopes for him at the beginning of the season. I got to see what he's on pace for, because what was at the beginning of the season I said he's going to throw for 5,000 and 50 touchdowns. So he's averaging 317 passing yards per game. We'll put that out over 17. So he's at 5,400. That's the pace. So he's good there.
Yeah, you're right.
29 divided by 10.
I see 4,800.
And so he's on pace for 5,400 yards and 49 touchdowns. So he's right on that cusp. So we need Antonio Brown back, and then he'll do fine. It's possible.
We'll see. Yeah,
it's possible.
You never know.
Not hope. Before we get to our next topic, though, let's answer a couple questions in the chat. Bob's got one here. Half point PPR pick 2. Brandon Ayuk, who has come back with a vengeance.
I dropped him. That pissed me off. Yeah, I'd go Ayuk. And I like the rookie from Penn State, Freiermuth, but I Higgins is a guy I think you sit this week. I just don't like the matchup. I just that's my take. But what about you?
I think you have to go. I agree with you on Ayuk. It still blows my mind that he's turned it around as quickly as he has.
Yes.
Man, I like Cole Beasley, but I don't all at the same time. I don't know if that's more of a personal
sorry.
with what he's able to do. What did he do against the Colts? I feel like he did nothing against the Colts.
He's done nothing all year.
That? 4 catches for 23 yards. I'd play Freiermuth. I'm gonna go that way as well. Big Ben's got a connection with him.
I like Big Ben this week too.
Yeah, against the Bengals, doing that NFC or AFC North, good old black and blue fight out there. So I believe that's in Cincinnati as well. So it should be a pretty solid matchup there. But I'd say those are our 2 solid picks. You got the touchdown upside a little bit more. Higgins has been really uneven. I wish I knew what was going on with T. Higgins.
Fucking Jordan, this guy coming in here with some jokes.
Oh, okay, all right, okay.
You still
got
owe us
our
money
DFS
for donations
guy.
to the charity, even though we lost. But
oh
kidding,
man, Jason Garrett needs to be nowhere near Chicago. End of story. Rashad Kennedy. Do you think Mooney will have the same amount of production as last week with Dalton? Yeah.
He's my pick to click, man. He's one of my starts that I'm going to talk. I'd go over at the end here, but I like Mooney. I like him I think he's the one guy that's going to do well for us on Thursday.
And going up against a Detroit secondary that's and if the Bears don't want to face full embarrassment,
exactly, Steven.
There you go.
Yep.
Next subject is we talk about MVPs. I think it's also time to start looking at sounding the alarm on specific guys that have not been what you would call a model of consistency the last couple weeks, and guys that you might have spent a little bit too much draft capital on, or maybe a little too much of that free agent budget if you do the blind bidding. And so let's talk about a couple of them. Whether or not it's time to sound said alarm on guys, or if they're going to break out of it and figure out what has gone wrong with their play and go from there. So
talk to me, Mr. Johnson.
Further ado, let's start it off in good old Tennessee. Again, a very bizarre team. There's a couple guys I think we can start here and start talking about.
Let's
start at the wide receiver position because a guy that, again, was looked at as a third-round pick among ADP is not necessarily bringing that value back when all is said and done, and that is the one, the only A.J. Brown in his third year with the Tennessee Titans. 24-year-old, he gets a little bit of a rib issue in the loss, the shocking loss to the Houston Texans. But here we are for the last 7 weeks. And we'll look at half PPR as the setup here. The last 3 games, he's got 7.3, 2.8, and 6.7 in the points columns. Had 2 big 100-yard games in weeks 7 and 8 against Kansas City and Indy. But he has turned into an absolute ghost as of late. Like we said, wide receiver number 30. Not really sure what's happening with him. I'm afraid to start trotting him out, I think, is really ultimately where I'm at this point of the season. Do you believe that it is time to maybe find an alternative headed down the stretch here for your roster, or are you still putting him out there with confidence that he can turn it around?
So I will say this. I traded him for Cordell Patterson when Derrick Henry got hurt, and I needed a running back. And I had Tannehill in another league, and he was killing me because Brown wasn't, like you said, he hasn't really been doing all that well. And Tannehill wasn't doing that, he wasn't producing. So I knew that wasn't working well for Brown. So I made that move, and it's helped me. Granted, Patterson got hurt. And I took a pounding this week with that bum knee or that bum ankle. But, I think it's time to, if your trade deadline is gone, it's probably last weekend. If you got a chance and you want to try to get rid of them to some sorry sap, do that. But it's definitely, I would sound that alarm 100%. I'm with you, Steven.
Yeah. Looking at the upcoming schedule here, they are at New England this coming Sunday. Then they're on a bye in week 13, and then they get a nice soft game against the Jacksonville Jaguars in week 14 before playoffs begin kicking in. And he's got a nice little matchup in Pittsburgh that first week. If you're in 16 playoffs, that's not that friendly of a role there. Really, that Jacksonville game is the only thing that really sticks out as a opportunistic situation for him. And whatever it's been, the Titans just cannot get him the ball when he's the only big playmaker on the field. And I mean, you can even kind of tie it back to an extent to Derrick Henry hitting the injured list as well. As soon as he went down, so is AJ Brown. There really has not been a whole lot going there.
It's all on AJ Brown, so it was like, granted, Julio did shit all year, but when he was out there, he still took the attention of the defense. He's still a playmaker. And so AJ Brown is the offense right now. They just cut Adrian Peterson. So it looks like Donta Foreman and Nichols? Not Nichols. There's another guy that's high on the priority here for Tennessee. I'll get to it later. But I want to stay in Tennessee for another guy that was looked at. I already talked about it, Ryan Tannehill. He's a guy that was looked at as a top high hopes coming into the season, coming off a great 2020. He was a QB 12 coming into this season. He's had 2 times finishing inside the top 12 for fantasy this season, where he has had, I want to say, 6 times outside the top 15. And so that equates for just a horrible, horrible fantasy take on a guy that they were looking at as putting up pretty big numbers. Granted, as we talked about, and it makes it a little easier on me to kind of talk about this with the Derrick Henry situation. Julio Jones not really being what they thought he was going to be, either just no connection, or he's just hurt, and he's been hurt, just dealing with bum legs at this point, just because he's been amazing for so long. His floor is what it is. His ceiling is what it is. And without Derrick Henry, I think he's a guy that you should look to start streaming quarterbacks if he's your option. But I just thought Ryan Tannehill coming into 2021 was a dude that was just going to have a much better season than he is. You made it easy on me there, but I didn't know if you wanted to. Is there a running back, or is there somebody else that you think, even a bigger fall from grace that we've kind of touched on so far?
Yeah, there's one name in particular, and I know people are not gonna like me saying it, but man, I'm really tempted to go that route. Do I want to bite my tongue? Do I want to bite my tongue? That's the question. You know what? I'm not going to bite my tongue. Saquon Barkley. Let's talk about Saquon Barkley. Everyone, you got to get him back into the swing of things. He's got to get back moving.
How do you look last night?
He had 6 carries for 25 yards. I mean, for a yards per carry, it's respectable. But here we are in 5 full games that Saquon Barkley has played this year. His top rushing total is 57. He has not broken 57 rushing yards over the course of the season. Yes, he's caught the ball. That's the only thing that saved him in a couple matchups. Week 3 against Atlanta, 6 catches for 43 yards. And then the following week at the Saints, 5 catches for 74 yards. And really that's it. Yeah, he did have some catches last night. Again, 6 catches for 31 yards, but still in a half PPR league, 3 of his 5 contests, he has failed to reach double digits. And especially with that receiving upside, I can't feel a sense of accomplishment being able to roll him out there and say, this is the guy. I just can't. Like that's so hard for me to say, because it seemed like he was going to set himself up for such a solid year. But here we are in really the 3rd year that he's experienced some injury history where he's missed multiple games. Again, the question is, can he stay healthy? And B, can his offensive line and just his talent himself, is it enough to go out there and rely on him as putting up RB1 numbers? And I tell you, Alex in the chat, thank God I drafted Jonathan Taylor. It's crazy because they were drafted right next to each other. That turn of the 1-2 round turn. Yeah, it was Taylor.
Average draft position was 10 for Barkley, so it was 9, 10, 11, right around there.
Yeah, you had that bunch. It was Eckler, Gibson, Barkley, Taylor. Like that. It was that cluster of 4, and Najee Harris in there too. But he was maybe a little bit further down. But really, it was that 50-50 toss-up, because if you went Gibson, if you went Barkley, it didn't work out too well for you.
Because Gibson's another guy. He's another one.
He definitely is. And he turned it around a little bit against Tampa Bay. But again, this is wild. It's absolutely wild just to see this fall from grace. And a guy that has just not been able to really piece it all together. They have 3.7 yards per carry average this year. Like that's not going to cut it. It just isn't.
He'll be better next year. I think, I hope anyway. It's just you hope he was so good, fun to watch. So, he was just ran like a fucking, he was a workhorse, man. He was awesome.
Right.
And it's just seeing a guy go down like that, you hope he comes back. But yeah, it's tough to see, especially I know Logan, drafted him in our little TTNL league, but, yeah, owners are not happy. Those teams that have him are probably sitting middle of the pack right now, to be honest with you, because you spent that high draft pick on him. And it's, unless you sandwich you went back-to-back running backs. If not, you're probably up Schitt's Creek without a paddle,
So in that regard, if you have him, are you still starting him and just saying, he's Saquon Barkley, he can go off? Or if you have two solid options, two guys that are more or less a guarantee the floor is going to be there at a low end RB2. I mean, we're like, I'm going to throw some names out here for you.
Okay.
Let's see. So let's say that you had Darrell Henderson, James Robinson, and Saquon Barkley. Which two are you starting out of that group?
Henderson. What was the second one?
James Robinson.
I don't like Robinson, but I think
kill him.
I'm going. You know what? I'm going both of those guys. I'm sitting Barkley there. That's kind of
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go a little bit further down the list then.
Okay.
Leonard Fournette.
Okay.
Or I'm trying to find a sneaky name here. Leonard Fournette or David Montgomery.
I'm starting Montgomery over Saquon.
Wow. Okay.
The proof's in the numbers, though. It's like at this point in the game, if you're fighting for a playoff spot, you're not going to just hope on a prayer, hope and pray. It's like you need to go with some sort of history, and you need to look at the stats. And with the two, November Lenny's around, playoff Lenny, it's starting to happen. So it's like that's a dude that you're going to want to probably try to get out there in your roster if you have him, and put him in your flex or your RB2 slot, and you're putting RB1 David Montgomery there. That's how I'm looking at that right there. What about you?
So I would agree with you on. I love James Robinson. I'd flip-flop with you. Okay. I think James Robinson has the workhorse capability. Darrell Henderson, the game can get away with him, especially with Sony Michel there. That I kind of look at it that way, is being the
good point,
the this or that, where you just need the touches. You ultimately need the touches at that point. Leonard Fournette, I tell you, the game on Monday night, it was a little disappointing because I think I wanted him to do more, and then in comes Ronald Jones, who has done nothing this season.
I was surprised to see that as well. I really was.
And then he just pops up out of nowhere. But at the same time, he
almost had 100 yards though. He had like 90.
True.
Yeah, he had like 92 all-purpose yards, but yeah, I hear you.
That's true. Yeah, he. I'd still think that there's the opportunities there for him to be the guy if he got the coin flip between those two. Two other names I want to bring up that I think might be a little bit more in balance with what Barkley is. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, or I lost the other one. Damn it, where did he go? Josh Jacobs.
Ah, man. I heard it's funny.
I'm trying to get harder as it moves on here.
it's a challenge, right? Because you know what, Barkley. First off, the Giants fucking suck. They just fired Garrett. Like they don't have any sort of offense.
Maybe he'll be better now. I don't know.
Very well, but man, shit.
I can't start Josh Jacobs over Barkley. I can't.
Dude, Barkley has 220 rushing yards.
But he missed so many games. He missed so many games.
3.7 yards a carry. What are we doing? 2 touchdowns. He almost has more receiving yards than rushing yards. He stinks this year. It's like you can't trust that. I'm
But
trying
so
to win
does
a
Clyde
playoff game. I'm
Edwards.
sitting that motherfucker. Dude, Hilaire at least got in the end zone.
That's true.
You know,
Yeah. I mean, it's just crazy to think though. Like he has this pedigree. People don't
yeah,
necessarily look at him like he's among this much lower list and not that first, second round pedigree that he was drafted at. I think it's just that name recognition, and literally we're in year 4 of his
yeah.
career, and he's still looked at it like this. Yeah, he tore his ACL last year, but there's just that pedigree that people just want to hold on to it. It's like Josh Gordon. Everybody remembers that one really good year he had, and it doesn't matter how many years pass, they think he's just going to
Gonna
find
go
that
right back
magic
to
all
that.
over
Yeah,
again. He's what,
yeah.
33 now and floundering with the Chiefs.
That
Like
was amazing. That was an amazing year. Gotta
it's
say.
it's going to be the same with Barkley in 10 years at the rate things are
Yeah,
going.
yeah. You got a point. I don't know, man. It's tough, but yeah, Barkley that's a good call though, and a guy that a lot of draft capital was spent on, and he just has not produced for you on a fantasy level. It's shit the Giants too. I mean, it's just all around bad. It sucks for Barkley owners. But I'd like to stay in the same conference. You already said his name, but Antonio Gibson. He was a guy drafted in the top 20. He's an RB 22 at this point. His last 3 weeks, he's had 20 fantasy points. I mean, that fucking awful. He's got too bad he's got a shin injury, and it's tough to be a running back if you got a bum leg. But at the same time, he's got McKissick sniping, targets, so he's losing there. At that ADP, where if you're drafted like 12th, like we talked about, or in that top 15, when we talked about like the Giant, like you lost out. Gibson, Eckler, the 4 we just mentioned. We talked about 2 of them already. It's just he's finished outside the top 24 5 times this year, and he's missed, I think, 3 games or 2 games. So like it's not a good look for him this season, and he's a guy that I think just it's sounding the alarm. I would panic if you are. You probably already have if you're a Gibson owner, But I just think
panicked week 3.
Yeah, and I think yeah, and to that point though, Steven, it's like that's one of the reasons why that division has been so suspect. Is just these injuries to their key players. They're not producing. You're not winning. And it's, granted, 2 different situations at the quarterback with Heineke and Daniel Jones or Mitch Trubisky or whoever it is over there in New York or New Jersey. But yeah, there's some receivers also. There's a few other guys. But what do you think, man? What other players have they outpunted their draft coverage, if you will, with respects to start of the season where we are now?
Another one we haven't talked about tight ends yet.
Okay.
One in particular that I thought
Shane's
was
gonna cut
going,
that, but
one in particular that I think a lot of people really had high hopes for, and again, it's not necessarily a sound of the alarm, but just like the overall disappointment, like the utmost disappointment for what he ended up turning out to be. Jonnu Smith, I think he's like tight end 32 right now.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just gone absolutely nowhere. However, another guy, I don't think he's necessarily disappointed, but I still worry about just the overall volatility of what he brings week to week, and the fact that I really don't think you can trust him. He's only missed 1 game this year due to injury, but at the same time, it just has not been good in terms of what he's brought to the table, and that's Noah Fant over in Denver. And I think a lot of people really, again, had high hopes for him, especially with Teddy Bridgewater getting the job in Denver. But you look at his body of work, and it's nothing that really screams like this is the guy. There's nothing really there. He had a big week against Las Vegas, who has not been too great against tight ends all year in week 6. 9 catches, 97 yards, and a touchdown. Before that, the most yards that he had all year was 62. So he really has not been piling up the yards, getting downfield with that athletic frame. We talk about a 6'4", 250-pound tight end. He should be able to stretch the field for you, and he just isn't. And that's something that I think was pretty eye-opening, because he was, give or take, the 7th or 8th tight end off the board in drafts this over the summer and leading up to the season. And so now, you're sitting here wondering, okay, where is that opportunity? And yeah, the tight end position is so bad that he's still tight end number 12 right now. So there's still that, okay, maybe he can put it all together here. He can figure it all out. But on a points per game basis, I think he's a little bit lower than that 12th. He might be in like the 14, 15 range.
Okay.
But at the same time, like, it's like, okay, if he isn't going to get it together now, when is he going to get it together, especially with as busy as that offense is? You have Jerry Jeudy, you have Cortland Sutton, who's just signed to an extension, Javonte Williams, Tim Patrick, the names. And so all of a sudden you go from, here's a guy that you might be able to rely on as a solid second option to, okay, maybe he's the third or fourth option at best because of what these wide receivers are able to do in terms of separation. And so that's the big question for me. And the thing I'm really starting to get worried about in terms of that consistency. I don't think he's a guy that you can confidently march out there and say, yeah, the tight end position sucks, but I can send this guy out here and he should be able to get me double digits in the right matchup.
Noah Fant. Yeah, it's with those weapons, you'd think he'd benefit from that. I think, Steven, you're hitting the nail on the head there. I will say quarterback play plays into that a little bit. He had high hopes. I've seen him get kicked around in some trades earlier this year. People did panic, and you could see why that was happening. Right.
Right.
And I had a guy that I thought was, he made the list for what he did last year, and this year, I think it speaks to the expectations. The team is doing well, but that, in Buffalo, but Stephon Diggs, wide receiver 3 last year, wide receiver 21 now. He's had 0 games this season with 10 catches. He did that 5 times last year. He's only broken 100 yards once this year, doing that 7 times crazy. Last year, but he's had, what is it? 1 game under 10 points and 1 game over 20. So he is right in that middle of like sweet spot, averaging 15.6, so that's not bad, but you were expecting, getting those Davante Adams numbers coming into the season when you drafted him. So not that you want to sound the alarm, but he's a guy that, you probably are looking at, every time you go to do your matchup, or you're looking at your projections and you're like, oh shit, just, it reminds you're like how tough he's doing. So, I just felt that was someone to throw on the list as we're talking about it. But I didn't know if there was anybody else, if you wanted to talk about some waiver wire or some glitches and cheat codes. Where are you at, my man?
Let's get into some waiver wire fun to wrap up the show. We got Chris chiming in with a couple names as well. You got Knox or Pitts as the
I'm sitting Pitts. I think he could be a bust this weekend. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead. I wrote a little about that earlier. I got to try to find what I wrote because I can't remember. But no, I like Knox out of those two, just because he's healthy, his hands feeling better. It was, the more he's playing, I just think he's a guy that he was playing really well until he did break his thumb or a finger. But it's not like he can really catch well with a busted thumb, but
that's true.
I feel like you would rather go with Pitts over Knox.
I do, only because of the matchup this week and the fact that Kyle Pitts is going up against Jacksonville. I mean, if he can't get it done against Jacksonville, I don't know what to make of that entire Atlanta team, because they have looked like pure puppy shit the last couple weeks, and it has not been pretty. whatsoever.
I just think
but
Matt Ryan has been so shit. Like, speaking of puppy shit, Matt Ryan has been so bad. I just don't know if you can really trust Kyle Pitts this year, like moving forward. I mean,
all
yes,
that
he could go
talent,
off,
all
but
that
I think your
talent.
play on Atlanta is Patterson out of anybody, just because they know they got to get the ball in his hands, just because
Yeah,
he can do it all.
yeah, that is true. I just, yeah, it's tough. I mean, I think they're neck and neck.
Yeah, and we could look back
most
tomorrow, next Tuesday, and it'd be like,
right.
Jackle, you fucking idiot. Like, Pitts outscored him by 25, but
Well, because I mean, this is the thing, is like just the fact that Kyle Pitts has not been living up to the hype the last couple weeks. I think the best stat line that he's had, if I'm not mistaken, well, he's only got one touchdown on the year.
yeah.
I mean, that alone, for the pedigree that you were, in the draft capital that you were putting up for a guy that was anywhere between tight end 3 and tight end 6, depending on how your drafts shook up. Since the bye week, he had the big game against Miami, 7 catches for 163, but then his next best game after that was 4 catches for 60, 3 catches for 62. I guess you could throw a toss up there as to what the better thing is there, but in all honesty, I mean, he's not doing anything as like the de facto number one option in that offense, with Matt Ryan throwing him the ball, and it's God, I really don't know how they've won any games. I really don't.
They owe Matt Ryan so much money. It's like they're fucked. They're just
They can get out of it after this season, though. It might happen. I don't know who they're gonna get, but it might happen.
I thought they still owed him some money on the dead cap next year. I thought they still owed him for next year.
I think they do, but I think it's to the point where it's
worth
like
eating some bread.
manageable.
I gotcha.
I think that's
okay.
I think the correct word is manageable.
Yeah, you're not cutting off your nose to spite your face. You're actually gotcha.
Yeah. So the potential out. There is the. Let's see if I can do math in my head here quickly. There's a dead cap number of 40 million.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But his cap hit is 48. So technically, they'll save something. They'll save something. That's all I can say. Like you're
saving $8 million
in the grand scheme of things, between what you're paying in dead cap and what you're saving. That's essentially what it boils down to.
He'll mentor some rookie draft pick next year, and they'll just he'll probably retire. Actually, he's pretty old, man.
36, I think.
Yeah,
37, somewhere in that range.
Yep.
But he's had a pretty solid career overall.
Yeah.
Doing the one team over the course of his career, there might be that 1 year stop in a random place that no one will remember 10 years from now. But hey, we'll see what happens. Still plenty of time to let that all boil down. Let's wrap things up here. Let's talk some waiver wire pickups for week number 12. For a lot of people, it's the waiver wire deadline right around the corner tonight. So get those picks in. If you are watching, let's start at quarterback. Who's your guy to pick up in the flex play of the week here?
Who toss up, but I'm gonna throw you a curveball here. It's
all right.
The baloney bopper Ben Roethlisberger, the 39-year-old, against Cincinnati on the road. Looking at I'm looking at a shootout here. I know we talked about not playing T. Higgins in that other little scenario we had talked about earlier. But I think on the Pittsburgh side of things, you could see Big Ben toss it around a little bit, and to the point of the game looks like a classic Pittsburgh Cincy, like 35-28. Ben throws for 4 touchdowns, 300 yards. And, I don't know if Claypool's coming back, but Deontay Johnson is just a beast out there. And I think he's in for a monster weekend also. And to that point too, though, with Big Ben, they got Baltimore, Minnesota, Tennessee, Kansas City, Cleveland, and Baltimore one more time. As they finish the season, you probably wouldn't even have to spend $1, and you may not even have to use a waiver claim to grab him. But that is my pick as a flex streaming quarterback option, Mr. Johnson. What about you, sir?
I am going to hope for the turnaround rookie game this week. And we talked about how terrible Atlanta was. And the quarterback that's playing the Atlanta Falcons this week is one Trevor Lawrence. He has not been all too great the last couple weeks. That much is for sure. However, if there's 1 week to try and plug him in as a starter, if you do need it this week, it'd probably be a prime time to do so. Hasn't passed for over 200 yards. I'm going to start kind of contradicting myself here as we go along. He hasn't eclipsed 200 yards in any of the last 3 weeks, and hasn't thrown for any touchdowns during that stretch as well. And so the struggle is there, but again, the opportunity to turn things around is there. It's just a matter of, I think they need to turn him loose a little bit more to get him out of the pocket, move around a little bit more. And again, this could end up turning into a bit of a disaster, but the Falcons allowing over 20 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. And again, it's a lot more points left on the board compared to what's normally out there and what Trevor Lawrence scores. So if you need him as that plug-in this week, I like Trevor Lawrence. What do we got here? We're saying no way, Logan. What are we talking about here? What's going on? What about
trading
this real
Matt
world
Ryan
trade
for Jalen Hurts?
No, there is not a chance in hell Philly will do that. Not a chance in hell. Yeah, no
way,
no.
Logan.
No way, Logan is correct. Not gonna happen.
So who do you got running backs? What do you got for me? Give me a running back on your list here. Who do you got?
So the one that sticks out to me, a guy in the Big Apple, or I guess in New Jersey, if you want to go that way. I'm taking him. I'm sorry. He should be at the top of every single priority waiver wire, and that's Ty Johnson with the Jets. Michael Carter going to miss this one with a sprained ankle. And
looking at 2 to 3 weeks out, by the way.
Exactly.
2 to 3 weeks for Carter.
Opportunity, everything coming up Millhouse for Ty Johnson. And again, everything that Carter has been able to do in this offense, that immediately pivots over to Johnson. There was a stretch there where he was putting up double-digit weeks at quite a decent pace, and now he's got an opportunity for some bell cow work against the Houston Texans. So really like the opportunity there for him to turn it up, and really great play this week at running back. How about you?
Well, you took my guy, you big jerk.
I'll go
here.
down. I'll go further down the list.
I'm teasing you. But so I'm gonna stay in Houston, and I'm gonna say David Johnson as the guy rostered 34% of the leagues. They're coming in a great matchup against the Jets. I mean, we're talking against, just flip-flopping here, but number one fantasy points allowed to opposing running backs. It looks like David Johnson is going to eat this weekend. I think it should be good news for him and Rex Burkhead. Johnson had 16 touches last week against Tennessee, and he had 3 catches as well, but he only got 5 PPR points. So, but to that point, we're at the point where you're trying to deal with an injury, a bye, or a fucking bullshit COVID test or something that's just, a guy lied, who knows? But, David Johnson's a guy you could get out there, really light on your budget, probably worth 5%, if that, or 5, it won't be much. But, he's a guy I think you could go grab if you needed a running back.
All right.
Sir.
Wide receiver, where are we at?
I love this dude. He is one of the reasons I gave it to Ralphie. And this is Elijah Moore. Rostered in 61% of the leagues. I'm kind of cheating here. I just think, say again.
Said teensy bit.
Just a little bit, screw it. I'm gonna back off of that. I'm gonna find somebody else.
Fine. It's fine.
All right, shit. But I just now that I lost my spot, I really did lose my spot. No, coming off a huge week, obviously, but he's put together a solid run for him where he just keeps putting up over 12 points a week, especially last week, as you saw. A monster of a week, finding the end zone twice. Between him and Ty Johnson, you could see some big fantasy points. I like that pick out of you. So I could see the Jets putting up some points on the board, depending on who's quarterback. I think it's Zach Johnson. It looks like he's going to get the start if everything goes according to plan. Grant, like I said, he's rostered in 61% of the league. So there's a chance this is a moot point. But for those leagues that he is available, go get him and enjoy. I kind of cheated there, but I like that pick. So, but what about you, man, over at the wide receiver spot?
There's a couple guys that I really like this week. I'm gonna go with the Thanksgiving play here. I think that's the route that I'm taking, and that's going to the Big D in Dallas and Cedric Wilson Jr. You got Cooper out again with the COVID, CeeDee Lamb probably not playing with the concussion. And so that leaves Michael Gallup on one side of the field and Cedric Wilson Jr. on the other. Did drop quite a few passes, but he still had 7 targets on Sunday against Kansas City. Vegas doesn't really require a whole lot of thought to say, okay, this is a situation where he might not do that well. No, Cedric Wilson is set up for what could potentially end up being a 8, 9, even 10 target week if it does get into a pass happy game between the Raiders and the Cowboys. And Cedric Wilson living on the outside there across from Michael Gallup. Gallup, another really great play this week.
Yes, sir. Good
Unfortunately,
call.
can't pick him because he's a little bit higher on the roster list. However, can't discount Cedric Wilson as a streamer play this week on Thanksgiving Day. Tight end, the ever cesspool pit of a position. Man, there's 2. I'm not going to go to Dan Arnold this week. I feel like I've been down that road numerous times. I'm not going.
It's a good call though, because he just keeps producing.
I know. I'm gonna go.
Didn't he have 0 points last week?
Yeah. It wasn't good. I'm gonna go with. Let's head to Washington. Let's head to the DC. Logan Thomas coming back officially off the IR this week. Taking on Seattle, who has been giving up yardages in chunks. It's not necessarily a situation that you'll need him to score, but we all know that Washington has struggled to get pass catchers healthy. DeAndre Carter is another one there in Washington that you might want to keep an eye on as well, because let's face it, Taylor Heineke just needs to throw the ball to somebody. I don't know who it's going to be, but he's got to throw the ball to somebody. And it will more than likely be a combination of those two guys. And at tight end, they need somebody in that role to really get that offense moving, and Logan Thomas will have the opportunity to do so. Hasn't played since week 3 against Buffalo, but a solid matchup here against the Seahawks. How about you?
So we had Andy, Mr. Troutman go down over in New Orleans, right? So Juwan Johnson is a guy that you should look to possibly grab, rostered, and pretty much in no leagues. So you can get him at any chance you can. I think he's somebody, granted you're dealing with Trevor Siemian, but he's a guy that is going to be a target, safety blanket, security blanket, if you will. Not saying he's going to do all that well, but if you're hurting and it's a deep league, tight end has obviously been a need for many teams in this fantasy season. If you don't have one of those top 8 guys, but you could also look to grab Austin Hooper, who's rostered in 20% of the leagues. They're playing Baltimore, and I hate to say it, but Cole Kmet could actually be a play here.
Again,
rostered in 27% of the leagues. Favorite target of Andy Dalton? Who knows? It may happen this Thursday. Give one for the old Matt Nagy on his way out the door as he goes and cries in his car driving home. And we move on here. But, that's how I'm looking at tight end. It's kind of slim pickings out there. all the good guys have been gotten, if you will. And you have to do something to make something happen. Make a pick, stick with your gut, and hopefully you can live and talk shit on Monday or Tuesday. And that's what we're doing here. So,
well, Juwan Johnson, he had that week 1 game where everybody kind of panicked and was like, "Oh, he's going to be a portion of that offense." Then he did nothing for the rest of the year up to this point. He'll have the opportunity. Tyler Conklin is another guy that's still sitting out there and seems to have carved himself a role in terms of getting some consistency in targets, especially in the red zone. So yeah, like you said, it's starting to get really, really slim.
Yeah.
In terms of what is available out there and how it all works out. But again, we're at that point in the season. That's ultimately what it comes down to. I don't think it's fair to say you're going to find a saving grace just sitting on the waiver wire, waiting for you to just pick him up and carry into a championship this late in the season.
Ty Johnson may get you to the playoffs. So if you lost Derrick Henry and you needed a running back, you may be able to get him, and he might be able to help you out this year, in the stretch run.
Yep, absolutely. It's very possible with the way that Jets offense has gone about the season. One thing on the defense front, in terms of the plug, and we're going to tie this back and bring it full circle to how we started the show. Because I see Charles's comment in here. Are we hoping for a Bears win or a Bears loss? If you are in a pickle, do you play the Bears defense against Detroit?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I did throw in. I put a claim in for the Bears defense before we hopped on the air here. I wouldn't mind streaming them against the Lions. It could be a 2-0 game, but at the same time, that's fantasy points for your defense. What about you?
Yeah, I am curious because, I mean, if the Bears can make Tyler Huntley look as good as they did, what are they going to do?
Yeah, but how many sacks did they have? I mean, they
did.
They didn't give up 20 points, so you didn't get killed on there were teams that did very well, with Bears if you played them last week against the Ravens. With once Lamar Jackson was out, people grabbed him and tried to make that play. And it paid off to some extent.
So I guess in terms of how this boils down, though, because apparently looking at Jared Goff as a game time decision, does that change your mindset in terms of should you not, in terms of rolling out the Bears D? Because
they both fucking suck. Tim Boyle or Jared Goff. They're one and the same. Boyle had 1 touchdown and 8 receptions at UConn when he was here and turned that into some FBS, some FC, I don't know, some Division 7 school, and ended up being Aaron Rodgers' backup. Probably has an uncle who's a referee. That's how he got the job. Who knows? But here we are.
Yeah, it's definitely, and really even looking at Jared Goff and his the rate that he has taken sacks as well. His last 2 games that he's appeared, 4 and 5 sacks respectively. He's been sacked at least 4 times. 4 times in his last 6 games. So again, it's definitely an opportunistic time there for the Bears defense to get back on track, even though there are a lot of people hoping for a Bears loss, and that is the final nail in the coffin.
It's already done. Nagy's gone. I don't think anything matters for Thursday. They just couldn't fire him on a short week. It would have been too chaotic. They just that's the only reason why I think they didn't do it on Monday, just because of the short turnaround, and they're going to do it on the long break as opposed to the short one.
Yeah, it's just tough. It's just tough to watch this unfold. Yeah. If it is true in terms of the reports that he's gone regardless, it's like we mentioned off the top, for a franchise that's never done this before, this is a hell of a way to do it. Start off
Let's make the slow play fire for the 96-hour fire,
Yeah. I saw you answer this one in the chat. We have
I think Mooney, Williams is hurt still. Am I right?
Williams had the long touchdown on Sunday night that won the game for him.
Shit, that's right.
Against Pittsburgh. That did in 2 of my fantasy teams over the weekend.
Oh.
So you know what? Screw Mike Williams.
There you go.
Rashad Bateman, he's an interesting play.
Did I just take that off? Sorry.
Yeah, I kind of lean.
If they get Lamar Jackson back, as long as he's not sick, that's not I just think Mooney is turned the corner. The target share, statistics just to me are showing Mooney is on this trajectory that is
he had
wild.
16 targets on Sunday.
Yeah.
He had 16.
And he had 13 the week before, right?
Let's see what he had here over. So last 3 games, he's gone 16, 6, and 9 in terms of target share. So, but I mean, he's making moves. He's doing what he needs to do with the ball. Yeah, I'll go Mooney too. I'm slowly talking myself into Mooney as you're offering that up, and I think we're on the same page there.
If he gets 10 targets Thursday, I mean that should be 75 yards.
Should be.
If you throw a touchdown in there, then you're looking at a beautiful day.
Yeah,
keep Murray. Don't drop Lamar Murray. Don't drop Murray. Latavius Murray.
Yeah, Latavius Murray this week is
a good
projected
play.
as running back 36 on Fantasy Pros. But I mean, if he's going to get double-digit touches, that's a running back that you want to keep on your roster, especially just looking at what they have coming up as well. Against Cleveland this week, not the greatest, and then Pittsburgh the week before. They get that Cleveland sandwich there. Mid-season, but then they get Green Bay and Cincinnati down the stretch, 2 more easy games to match up against there for him. But don't drop Latavius Murray. So what was that last one that you flashed up there?
Stevenson from New England. I think he's a strong play this week. He could be a sleeper flex.
I'm curious to see how they handle this down the stretch.
Him and Harris
with the Patriots, with Damian Harris and everything. Ramondre, 12 carries for 69 yards. Not bad. 100 yards the week before against Cleveland. Not bad. But then Damian Harris, it's looking like it might be a 50-50 split down the stretch here.
But in that offense, that's not a bad thing. I mean, I'll say they're putting up numbers.
Yep. And
you just read it off,
And not only that, but again, the fact that you want to try and take the pressure off of your rookie quarterback, which Bill Belichick has done a really good job of doing to this point in the season, and they are rolling. They are the number 1 team in the AFC East this year with a rookie quarterback. So, hey, if you guys enjoyed the Patriots sucking for a year, it ain't going to happen again.
No.
Plain and simple.
Belichick's like getting the last laugh, apparently,
That he is.
Matt Jones is going to be the guy that sends Brady off into retirement, and Belichick's just going to have the biggest shit-eating grin when it's that's how it'll all play out, right? Brady won't want it to happen, but it's Father Time. He's undefeated, so.
Could you imagine, just the story of that, and everyone would eat it up.
Brady's fucking documentaries out while he's still playing. I don't get that either, but whatever. That's another fucking show. It's
the rants
over here in Connecticut.
The rants and the possibilities. Yeah, we're gonna wrap it up here. We've got a fun holiday-filled week ahead of us. As do all of you as well. We got Thanksgiving, some Bears football, bright and early, taking on the Detroit Lions up in the Motor City. So do enjoy that. Do enjoy the holiday. No matter where you're spending it, hopefully it's full of some turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, and everything else in between. Just be lazy, watch some football, and enjoy the very long weekend.
Exactly. Happy holidays. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Stay safe. Do not drink and drive. I sound like my mom. Use Uber, designated driver. Don't be a fucking idiot. But seriously, spend time with your family if possible. I know with COVID and everything, people haven't been able to spend a lot of time with family but with all that being said, be safe, healthy, happy, eat plenty of food if you can. And, maybe reach out to somebody you haven't talked to in a while, say hello. But, to that point, this is Chris Jackle. That's Steven Johnson. This is One Up Fantasy, and we will see you next Tuesday at hopefully 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. Have a great evening, everybody.
And have a wonderful holiday. See you next week.